A presentation of the Nordic model in a Swedish context. The trade union vow. A membership in the trade union means that we make a promise to each other. It is solemnly called the trade union vow. We do solemnly swear that we will never, under any circumstances, work for lower wages or under worse conditions than we now promise one another. We make this vow in the secure knowledge that if we are all true to our pledge, the employer will be forced to meet our demands. What are the characteristics of the model? The Nordic model is characterized by two well-organized social partners. The density of organization in the trade union has fallen in recent years, but is still high, about 70%. For employers' organization, the corresponding figure is 87%. 90% of all employees work in a workplace with collective bargaining agreement. High self-regulation of the labor market. The collective agreements have a special legal status. Legislative provisions in the labor market area can often be substituted or deviated from through collective agreements. Conditions on the labor market are regulated to a very high degree through collective agreements. Few conflicts in the labor market. No industrial actions are allowed when a collective bargaining agreement is valid. No legislation on minimum wages. Wages and wage formation are handled by the social partners without political involvement. The collective agreements specify a wage floor. Wage levels vary not only between sectors, there are also different levels within the agreements depending on the worker's age, education, and work experience. Usually, the lowest wages paid by employers are higher than the wage floor. How does it work in practice? The collective bargaining agreements are national for different sectors, for example, food, hotels, or agriculture. There are approximately 700 different national collective bargaining agreements in Sweden. The agreements are signed on a national level between the social partners, a trade union and the employers' organization. When a new company is established, there are two ways to sign a collective agreement. One is that the employer becomes a member of an employers' organization. Then the collective agreement applies. If the employer does not want to become a member, the trade union negotiates directly with the company and signs an identical agreement. As soon as the union gets information that a member works at a company without collective agreement, the company is contacted by the union. What happens if the employer doesn't want an agreement? The trade union can take industrial action. What is regulated in collective agreements and what is regulated in the legislation? The law is fully or partly dispositive and allows the parties to enter into collective agreements that are adapted to the conditions of the sectors. Here are some examples. Working hours. 40 hours per week are specified in the law. 38 hours per week for shift work is specified in the agreement. Vacation. The law says 12% of all earned salary for 1 year is paid on vacation. The agreement says 13.2%. Working environment, health and safety. The law says that there must be an elected health and safety representative in a workplace with more than 5 employees. The agreement states that the safety representatives are entitled to 40 plus 40 hours of paid health and safety education. Forms of employment. The law says that a permanent position is the main rule. The agreement states that the union shall have a copy of the employment contract. Wages. The agreement includes a wage floor. 0. There is no legislation on minimum wage. The The importance of the collective agreement for the members. So the collective agreement is of great importance to our members. The collective agreement regulates wages and other terms of employment. The wage floor is approximately 70% of average actual wages. There is no upper limit. In addition to the wage floor, there are supplement pay for shift work, overtime work, inconvenient working hours, holiday pay, paid leave for certain special days, such as your own wedding. As part of the collective agreement, there are a number of insurance policies. A protection that complements the social security system in case of work injury, sickness, unemployment, parental leave, pension, and death. As you understand, there are very good things in the collective bargaining agreements for our members. So what is it that makes the employer sign an agreement? What does the employer get? No industrial actions are allowed when a collective bargaining agreement is valid. We promise not to strike as long as the agreement is valid. That's the trade we do. Trade union cooperation with the Social Democratic Party has created the conditions for our model. We have built up a system that protects our promise. An economic policy for full employment, an economic policy with the goal that everyone who can work shall work. An active labor market policy aimed at providing people a job, inter alia, paid education, internship, subsidized employment. Unemployment benefits, income protection, 80% of former wage compensation. Labor laws, 3 important laws. Employment Protection Acts, 3 pillars. Factual grounds for dismissal, employment time determines last in, first out. The right to re-employment. Co-Determination Act. The employer is obliged to inform and negotiate with the trade union. The union has the right to strike to get a collective agreement. The trade union representative rights. The right to paid leave, wage protection, and trade union education. Collective bargaining agreements. The social partners are responsible for wage formation. All this is a fundamental protection of our trade union vow. So, is this a good model? Collective agreements create a long-term stable framework for developing the economy, companies' competitiveness, and workers' conditions. One of the highest employment rates in the EU, the second lowest wage dispersion in OECD, high employment rate among women, and a comparatively low pay gap between men and women. An annual real wage growth on average 1.2% the last 22 years. In Eurofond's Industrial Relation Index, Denmark is number 1, Sweden is number 2, and Finland is number 6. And that is including the industrial democracy, industrial competitiveness, social justice, and quality of work and employment. In the economy as a whole, that is not only the part covered by collective agreements. Less than 1% of workers are paid a monthly full-time wage below €1,750. And blue-collar workers earn €2,550 as an average. What are the risks associated with legislation on wage formation? We have a high level of trade union density, strong collective agreements with high lowest wages, and it's connected. A high degree of density makes it possible to obtain strong collective bargaining agreements. Statutory minimum wages risk undermining the importance of collective bargaining and reducing the interest in organizing. In the long term, this means that the model is threatened. The special self-regulation position of the collective bargaining agreements in the Nordic model means that legislation has a very negative impact. The simple fact is that state involvement in wage policy will undermine the importance of collective bargaining agreements.